New World Computing has just released the much-awaited Empire 2. And after playing it a while, I can say that it's a really good package. But it's not for just anyone.
That's because there exists in the gaming world a brand of wargamer known affectionately as the Grognard. This is the person that drives casual gamers up the wall. It usually goes like this.
I really liked that scenario of the Battle of Waterloo. It was a lot of fun and the graphics were great.
Maybe so, but it was all wrong. The French forces weren't strong enough. The computer intelligence was way below normal because the enemy forces would never have responded like that. And where did that weather come from? If that would have actually happened, the battle would have been totally different, and the unit strengths were all wrong, and I'm telling you, there were some birds flying over in the real battle that wasn't simulated in the game.
But I thought it was fun.
Bah!
That person is called a Grognard. They know everything about every battle that's ever been fought in history. And they've played every war game that's ever been released on the PC.
It's very difficult to make a game that pleases these guys, but Empire 2 just might do it. But it might be at the expense of the casual war gamer.
The reason that these hardest of hardcore gamers will really like Empire 2 is that when you buy it, you really aren't buying a strategy war game at all. You're actually buying a strategy war game engine.
All of the scenarios that are included in the package have been designed with the tools that are included in Empire 2. There's a complete map designer, unit designer, scenario designer, and an icon editor.
While the actual gameplay isn't any different from the masses of other games on the market,
and while there are certainly plenty of games that include scenario editors,
there really hasn't been a game that gives such complete control over every single aspect of gameplay and still have the high quality of play that's delivered in Empire 2.
The gameplay in Empire 2 is very much like all the other hex-based games on the software shelves today. The battlefield is viewed from overhead and the units are represented by square counters that look like cardboard cutouts.
Movement and combat attributes have been assigned to each unit. The different types of terrain affect line of sight and movement rates, and certain units have the ability to fire several spaces away. It's pretty much the same old style of game.
You can play in two different modes, sequential or parallel. Sequential sets up the game where one army moves and attacks, then the other army moves and attacks. In parallel mode, both armies give their commands and the armies then carry out their orders at the same time.
Parallel mode seems to more closely represent actual war, but I think sequential lends itself better to gaming. But it's all a matter of taste.
Playing the game is a matter of choosing a unit and issuing the desired order from the toolbar on the right side of the screen. You can also bring up the same commands through a window from each individual unit.
It's an interface that's easy to use and understand, even if it does require a few more mouse clicks than I'd like.
The graphics, while being functional, are not all that spectacular. All of the standard wargaming terrain is here, like rivers, roads, forests, and deserts. While not being ugly, they certainly aren't all that pretty.
But where Empire 2 really gains points is the fact that every editor used to design the scenarios is included in the package. The map editor lets you designate the size of the battlefield, then all you have to do is pick a tile type from the toolbar and click it onto the map.
When you place a connectable tile, like a piece of river or road, the computer automatically connects when the same type of tile is placed next to it.
And the map editor also comes with some handy paint tools, and that's a good thing because editing some of the larger maps can take quite a while.
It features a function to paint 3 squares at a time, cut, copy, and fill regions of the map. You can even have the computer generate a completely random world.
Unfortunately, you can't edit the tiles themselves. It would have been great to be able to design your own tiles, but you have to work with what is provided.
One of the better editors is the technology editor. This is where all of the units are given their movement, sighting, and combat attributes. There's a lot more to this than what you might think.
The trade-off of being able to edit any attribute is the fact that this can become a little overwhelming and time-consuming. Just some of the things you can modify in the technology editor are the unit movement characteristics,
movement terrain modifiers,
unit combat characteristics,
ranged fire terrain charts,
ranged fire target modifiers,
unit sighting charts,
and you can even assign sound effects. With this technology editor, you aren't just limited to a certain style of unit, like a World War II game would limit you. You can make any kind of unit you can think of and give it any kind of attributes that you want.
Again, it would have been nice to have been able to edit terrain tiles in order to make things like outer space scenarios.
The scenario editor is where all of your work is brought together. Once you've decided on the map and unit set you want to use, you go to the scenario editor to combine it all.
Through the scenario editor, you give your scenario a description and assign all of the units to positions on the map.
You can also add scheduled events like weather and unit replacements and reinforcements.
Don't forget about supply locations, and victory conditions also have to be established. There's a lot to do when designing a scenario from the ground up. But if you're that kind of person, Empire 2 is all you'll need to design that battle you've always dreamed of.
Topping everything off is the icon editor. That's right, you can even design the icons for your self-made weapons.
Empire 2 provides you with a paint program that allows you to paint whatever you want using a simple point-and-click method.
If you've ever used a real paint program before, this icon editor might drive you a little crazy since it is very primitive and doesn't provide all those nifty paint features like fill or cut and paste.
But at least you aren't stuck using someone else's icon designs.
Whether or not you should buy Empire 2 really depends on what kind of a person you are and what kind of game you want to buy.
Anyone who would consider themselves a strategy wargame grognard would be happy with this game.
Anyone who loves to really get into the technical side of games would probably like Empire 2.
If you want a good-looking game that lets you blow up lots of things and has a high excitement level, well, you might want to get something like Steel Panthers.
If you want something flashy and exciting, Empire 2 isn't it.
If you want something with substance, something you can spend lots of time with, a game that can go as far as you want it to, then Empire 2 is the game for you.